Welcome to Manna at the Tap, a podcast of Tapestry Ministries. Each episode reflects on a daily Bible reading from the Revised Common Lectionary. I'm Laura, a fellow traveler on a spiritual journey with the Tapestry community. We call the daily Bible reading our spiritual manna, which nourishes our souls and fosters spiritual growth as we share insights and interpretations that enrich our spiritual lives. Today is Wednesday, April 30th, 2025, and we are in the second week of Easter. On Monday and Tuesday of this week, we listened to the Esther story. Although it is an ancient story, it contains many valuable lessons that are still relevant today. Esther lived on the margins of society, an outsider, a Jewish woman born in Babylon, caught between the culture of our ancestors and the culture around her. But God used Esther, a nobody, and her uncle Mordecai to save the Jewish people of her day. Although God's name is not mentioned aloud in the book of Esther, one can sense God's hand at work, guiding all the threads of this story for good. Today's reading concludes Esther's story found in chapter 9, verses 1 to 5. As we learned yesterday, Esther and Mordecai, along with a community of people who guided them and prayed with them, were able to expose the evil plans of their sworn enemy, Haman. Haman's hate for the Jewish people was in his DNA. He was born into an ancient feud between the Jews and the Amalekites, and he was determined to keep the war going. When Mordecai refused to acknowledge Haman as his superior, Haman was infuriated. The spark of anger he had in his heart for the Jewish people turned into an out-of-control wildfire that was going to be very difficult to put out. Sometimes the anger, prejudice, or hate we have for another person or group of people is passed down from generations of conflict. This is true not only in society, but also in our own families. We can have a seed of anger that, when fully grown, can lead to death, like in Esther's story. But God. Although their enemy was now dead, impaled on the highest pole in the city, the pole he built to execute Mordecai, the problem of the edict to kill all the Jewish people was still there. Because it was against the king's law to revoke an edict, the king suggested they rewrite the edict so that the Jews can defend themselves. The new edict gave the people the right to gather together, protect themselves, and kill any enemy who might attack them. The new edict also gave them the right to take over any property of their enemy. The king's new orders were copied, sealed, signed, and delivered to all 127 provinces, so everyone might know, weigh the risk, and decide for themselves. Now all they had to do was wait. What will happen? Will the people attack the Jewish people and risk being killed themselves? The day the edict took effect, instead of death and destruction, good news spread like wildfire. Haman's evil plan had been defeated. The Jewish people had the upper hand. They had all gathered in their respective cities, ready to stand against anyone who planned to attack them. And anyone who dared to attack them, they stopped. More good news. Mordecai's favor and influence in the court grew, and he became second in command to the king. After the consequences of the edicts played out, Queen Esther and Mordecai continued to have a positive influence on the kingdom, advocating for their prosperity and for the well-being of their people. And we still celebrate Esther's story today, and it is a festival called Purim that we still read aloud Esther's story and celebrate her. So that concludes the Esther story, and I'd like to leave you with these words. Remember to have courage, like Esther, when faced with adversity, even the impossible. Perhaps you too were put in this place for such a time as this. Thank you.